And we're back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacey here on the Money Matters Radio Network. You're joining us for our Leaders and Legends segment, and we have joining us live by phone today, Susan Power, owner and CEO of Hire Talent. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
So a little bit about Hire Talent. They are an organization that is set up to support organizations across North America to increase workplace productivity through talent management, HR policies and procedures, HR metrics, HR advisory support, and organizational learning and development plans. Can you tell us a little more about Hire Talent and what you guys do?
Certainly. Thanks, Stacey, for the opportunity. We work primarily with small to medium-sized business owners, and our typical client does not have an HR manager on staff, so they will outsource HR to Hire Talent. And often they don't require a full-time HR staff member, so they like the service we provide because they can use 20 hours a month or whatever it is they need based on their requirements. So yeah, our sweet spot is small to medium-sized businesses, and our value proposition is building compelling cultures that inspire trust and productivity in the workplace.
Wow, that's great. What prompted you to pursue entrepreneurship, and what has it been like just building a business from ground up?
Yeah, it's funny. I think most entrepreneurs I've met that have stuck with it, they are really an entrepreneur at heart and have been pretty much their whole lives. So I started off my career working in large corporations. I worked at Accenture doing management consulting in Toronto, Canada, and relocated due to my spouse's job opportunity to St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, very much on the Atlantic coast. So I had to quit my job, and I thought, okay, it's now or never. So started up a business and built it up from the ground up. Have been doing that for the past 5 years, and have been quite successful at it, although the first 2 years, it does take some time to build a new network and to grow a business. But then eventually, if you're lucky, you get some momentum, and it kind of takes on a life of its own.
Wow. So why is workplace productivity so critical to the success and growth of any business?
I think that workplace productivity, in my mind, is similar to employee engagement. So if employee morale is really poor in an organization, if there's high turnover, lack of support for employee training and development, lack of transparency, poor leadership, employees might show up for work, but they're not going to be productive, and they're certainly not going to be engaged and motivated when they're there. So I think productivity is just a good place to start. I'm interested in the topic. I did some research on it this fall, scanned hundreds of articles from the past 10 years, and identified what are the top drivers of productivity. So when I work with a client, we start off by assessing where they're at across those productivity drivers, and then put a plan together to maximize their employee productivity.
Wow. So where do most organizations go wrong, do you think, with inspiring trust and creating a great culture that attracts and retains top talent?
Yeah, there's lots of variation there. To me, of the 15 drivers that I've identified, the one that has the biggest impact and is kind of the foundation is culture. And I know when I've spoken with business owners, they say, well, how do I even start to build a culture or assess what our current culture is? So that one's really important, and it seems to be a trend in HR right now to put a culture building program in place. So basically, it's just identifying what behaviors and values you want to grow within your business and putting a plan together to ensure that leaders embrace those values and behaviors, and employees are recognized when they take action that is in line with the culture you're trying to build.
Do you find that most cultures are similar in terms of what people are trying to build?
Not really. It really varies, I think, based on the industry and what the growth goals are for a business. So some industries are more conservative than others. High-tech businesses are often very young in terms of employee demographics, and, not as formal as banking or insurance industry. So I always tell my clients, well, think about who your clients are and build a culture with your employees that's going to align with the type of clients you're serving.
Understood.
I also think that as your company grows, like my company has gone from, I originally started with like 10 real estate agents that work at my company, and now I have 400. And it's interesting that I don't think that what people are looking for necessarily changes, but your strategy as a company has to change. And I'll give you one little example. We've always sent out each month gifts to our agents and to their spouses and to their kids when they have a birthday. So we'll send out a card with some sort of chocolate brownies or something to recognize their birthday. I will tell you that now that our company is so large, it's really getting difficult to manage that list and go through it each month and make sure, like, some of the people, you're not sure if they're even with the company anymore. And then other problems, like, for example, one person gets the brownies and then somebody else doesn't. It causes issues. Like, you really have to have a strategy, and not only a strategy, but one that changes as you grow your organization.
Absolutely. It has to fit the size of your business. But I think that's a great example, Stacey, because that whole personalizing and connecting with your clients in terms of their kids' birthdays really builds a relationship. And I'm sure they must have loved that.
Yes, they love it, and I want to continue it. But I'm like, wow, it's getting to be a real challenge. And the challenge, which it looks like you guys do a lot of this stuff, is like what got us to where we are today is retaining a mom and pop culture. That we are a large organization, but we have a mom and pop culture where we have rules in place, but we break rules sometimes to help people and things like that. But it's like becoming a challenge that what got us to where we are with 400 real estate agents is not going to necessarily get us to where we want to go with 800 or 1,000 real estate agents.
Yeah, you got to refresh your strategy. I know I was meeting with the client the other day, and they've had a lot of success where they're actually a chocolate company, retail chocolate outlet, and they're opening multiple retail locations. And the owner was saying, I wash the floors because I shouldn't do it. We have a janitor on staff, but employees like it. They see me doing it, just part of the culture to roll your sleeves up and go with it. But at the same time, as you evolve, you need to, I guess, kind of update your thinking when your organizational structure grows and, act like owners and figure out what you need to outsource, whether it's HR or IT or finance, just so you have enough time to grow your business and evolve with it.
You know what I think would help, Stacey, is if you and I could tour that chocolate factory.
Yes.
I feel like that would really help us evolve in business.
It's a pretty sweet smelling spot when you go in there, even the office. Yeah. It's a
If
nice
I went
spot.
in there, you'd probably never hear from me again.
I thought Bob was going to make fun of me because we just had this conversation right before we had you on the call that I do too much stuff that I shouldn't do.
I was going to let it go.
Yeah. He's like, you need to hire somebody to help you with that stuff. You can't do everything.
It's hard when you're an owner because it's your baby when you start a business, and you always think that no one can do this as well as I can because I know my business.
Right.
But that's a fallacy. I mean, when you grow your business, you have to hire people that are smarter than you, ideally, and then trust them, and your business will grow more quickly when you do that, is my belief.
Well, you get to that point where you literally just can't keep up anymore. So you have to. I think that's what happens to a lot of people is they finally end up letting go because it's not a choice anymore. It's a requirement.
Yeah, and that's the type of problem I want to have.
Yes.
That's a good problem to have.
What type of impact does human resources have on the bottom line of a company?
Oh, it can be huge. I mean, in terms of cost, organizations spend between 25% up to 60% of their operating costs are spent on payroll and related employee expenses like training, benefits costs. So it always amazes me when organizations don't include HR as part of their business planning process because that's a huge amount of their cost structure. And I think part of the problem is with small businesses is they think HR, they think recruitment, hiring and firing. Well, in reality, HR is the entire employee life cycle. It does a lot more. The whole talent management piece is a lot more involved than just hiring and firing.
Right. What about, I know culture was one of the drivers. Is training for people a driver? Like education?
You got it. Yeah, that's one of the 15 drivers, absolutely. And surprisingly, only 25% of employees say that they receive adequate training and development opportunities from their employers. So, if you don't feel like you're growing in your career, that has a huge impact on employee morale.
That's great. Do you publish this or put blog posts or anything that people can follow? Some of your studies?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My website, I have a blog right on the homepage of my website, which is highertalent.ca, HIGHER talent.ca. And we're on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube.
Okay. What talent management trends do you think will have the biggest impact in 2016, and where do you think businesses should focus their time and energy?
I think the biggest one that I see on my radar is companies are ditching their performance management in terms of the formal annual reviews. And managers hate doing them. Employees hate receiving them. And it actually has the opposite effect where it really pisses people off when they sit down and their manager, assesses their past performance. So instead of that, a lot of the big companies have abandoned it, like Microsoft, Gap, Accenture, Deloitte, have recently got rid of their performance management program. And instead, they're having discussions with their employees on career development and growth and more of a discussion than a review.
All right. And since Bob and I were talking about it right before the show, talking about hiring people, do you have any advice for weeding through candidates? Recently, I put out an ad for an administrative position at our company. And I have to tell you, I received hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of resumes for it. It was almost overwhelming to figure out. I feel like it's throwing spaghetti against the wall, trying to just pick one person out of there that would be a really good qualified candidate.
Yeah, for sure. There's applicant tracking systems that companies like myself, Higher Talent, have that save time so you can automate your search criteria a bit. But yeah, it does take time to recruit effectively, but it shouldn't be time spent on identifying good resumes. It should be time spent in the interview process.
That's interesting.
But where a lot of companies go wrong, I find, is they forget to assess culture fit when they're interviewing candidates, and they don't know what questions to ask to do that. But in my mind, that's the most important thing, to make sure that you're hiring employees whose values fit into your culture, because you can always train people up on technical skills. So you got to get the right people that fit with your team and your company.
That's awesome, because you're right. Technically, I think when I'm hiring people, I'm focusing on their technical fit and really not evaluating whether that person is going to be a good cultural fit with our organization.
Yeah, and a lot of people will Google interview questions, but I think a more effective way of interviewing is just to start trying to build a relationship with the candidate and have a conversation, because if it's less formal, people will let their guard down a bit, and you'll get to know them a bit better and know if they're a fit for your company a lot better than if you go through traditional interview questions.
That's awesome, because I do a lot of interviewing for our company, and I honestly just wing it. And then I look at it and I'm like, 50% of the time I end up with a good candidate who ends up sticking with us a long time. And the other 50%, we find out quickly they don't work. But what I think businesses like my own, you don't realize is the cost, the amount of time that it's taking you to bring on untalented people or people that don't fit the culture, like there's a massive cost associated with not just doing it right the first time and working with a company like yours.
Yeah, it's better to take your time and find the right candidate. A lot of small businesses will call me and they'll say, I need someone yesterday, and they just want to get the role filled. But if you don't have the right match, I've seen it time after time again, they bring them on, and it actually costs them more in the long run than if they just kind of took their time and found someone they were excited about and who was a good fit.
Absolutely. So we have with us, you can, by the way, check out hiretalent.ca. We have been listening to Susan Power from Hire Talent, and you can check her out on her website and learn more about Hire Talent and bringing on a human resource team into your company. Thank you for joining us today, Susan.
Oh, thanks so much, Bob and Stacey, for having me. And if I can just mention, if any small business owners who might be listening to this need support in HR, we offer 30-minute complimentary, no obligation consultations to learn about your HR challenges and see if there would be a fit with Hire Talent to work with you.
Excellent. Thank you, Susan. That's going to do it for this edition of Get Real with Bob and Stacey. Join us again next weekend for more.